In this video, we're going to look at ways that you can help an emotionally unavailable man to share his feelings. If you're dating an emotionally unavailable man, you might find it really difficult to cope with just how hard it is for him to express his emotions and explain what he's feeling about almost anything at all. This isn't just about making life easier for you, though. When an emotionally unavailable man hides how he's feeling, it's really hard for him to get his needs met as well. If he can't communicate or share what makes him feel uncomfortable, or even what makes him feel great, you're not going to be able to adjust your behavior to help him either. By the end of this video, you're going to have all the tools you need to help him open up so you can work together on creating a great relationship. And you deserve a great relationship. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you get all the best advice on building a happy, healthy relationship. Now, there's a little warning I want to give before we get into the how you can help an emotionally unavailable man to share his feelings. It's important to be really clear about what we're trying to do here. We're trying to help an emotionally unavailable man who wants to communicate with us to find ways to do that. We are not trying to force someone who is emotionally unavailable to open up and share what's going on for them. It's important that we respect them exactly as they are. It's not our place to try and change someone or even to put pressure on them to change. Emotionally unavailable people aren't wrong or broken or somehow at fault. They just have a different way of interacting with others than you do. And if they're happy that way, then you'll have to decide whether you can cope with that or whether it's better for you to walk away. Now, I know that's blunt, and it's possibly not the nicest thing to hear, and I am sorry about that, but it's important that you realize that emotionally unavailable people are often put under a lot of unfair pressure to change, and that this can actually be quite damaging to their self-esteem. You also risk damaging your relationship with them, possibly irreversibly, if you start from the position that their emotional unavailability is a problem that they have to change. Okay, so with that warning out of the way, how can we help an emotionally unavailable man who does want to be more open to share his feelings? The first thing is that we need to make him feel safe. Not because it'll make him want to open up, but because you actually want him to feel emotionally safe around you. Now, this shift in focus might seem subtle, but it can make a big difference to how he perceives and responds to your efforts. Now, remember that an emotionally unavailable person isn't necessarily emotionally illiterate. Some people become emotionally unavailable because they're actually really deeply attuned to the feelings of others, that it can become really overwhelming for them. So they're going to need you to give them the space and give them the safety so that they don't feel like they're having to carry your emotions and deal with all of that. The next thing you can do to help an emotionally unavailable man to feel safe and to open up is to own your own problems. Now, some people become emotionally unavailable because they don't want to or even can't deal with other people's emotional problems. They don't want to have to deal with other people's triggers or outbursts. Now, there's a balance to be struck there because obviously it is reasonable to expect that your partner is supportive and cares about you. But dealing with your own triggers and your own issues and being open about them is an important part of trying to create that emotionally safe space that allows your partner to understand that you're not going to just pile your problems onto them as soon as they give you a way in and an opportunity to talk about your feelings. It's also worth pointing out that this is really common for any guys who've been in a form of emotionally abusive relationship. Now, men are just as susceptible to emotional abuse as women. Abusers are gender neutral. In fact, it could be even harder for men in an abusive relationship to get the support that they need to deal with their problems. So you might need to be a little bit careful if that's been the case. If you're trying to help an emotionally unavailable man to communicate his emotions more, is to be really curious, to be more focused on understanding what he really means than you are on the specifics of what he said. Now, often that means giving him a chance to correct things that he's said, because he's going to make mistakes. We all do. When we're trying to explain our emotions or explain a position, we will just say something and get it not quite right. Have you ever been in a situation where you misspoke in a conversation or even in an argument, and the other person just will not let it go. So you've tried to correct yourself, and the other person just keeps using that misspeak against you for the rest of the conversation. It's unbelievably frustrating. For example, you might have said, "Oh, all men something or other." And the other person quite rightly calls you up and says, "No, no, no, not all men." Actually, no, I'm really sorry. That was excessive generalization. What I meant to say is some men. And they just keep coming back to, "Oh, yeah, but you said all men and this man didn't." Like, yes, I was wrong. I corrected myself. And it's unbelievably frustrating, and it shows you that the other person doesn't really want to know what's going on. The same thing happens when an emotionally unavailable man is first trying to communicate his feelings. And if he's had problematic or abusive relationships in the past, he's probably actually really used to that. It's one of the things that can really make it so tempting for him to shut down, because he feels like he's trying to open up and he gets punished for making the attempt. So that's a really horrible feeling, and it's so easy to avoid. He needs to feel safe enough to say the wrong thing, and he needs to be allowed to explore the idea out loud and to work with trying out different kinds of words until he finds the ones that actually fit his own experience. So I'm going to use an example from my own life. I've dated a guy who had an abusive ex. There's no two ways around it. She was abusive. Whenever we had a problem that we needed to talk about, he would just absolutely shut down emotionally. Though it would be like talking to a blank wall. It was awful. And when I asked him what was going on for him, or what he was thinking, or what his take on the problem was, he would always reply with, "I don't know how to explain it." And if I asked again, he'd say, "I don't have the right words." And you could see that he was really frustrated because he wanted to be able to fix it, but he just couldn't. And what helped was when I turned around to him and said, "It's okay. You don't have to have the right words. If you're able to start trying to explain it, it's okay if it doesn't come out right. If you say the wrong things and use the wrong words, we can ignore it. We can keep trying together until we find something that actually does sound right to you." And that blew his mind, because he was being told explicitly that it was okay to get it wrong and that I wasn't going to use his attempts to be emotionally open against him. Now, it wasn't a silver bullet. We worked hard to build trust between us before that and after. And I had to show him that I really meant what I said. But that wasn't that difficult, because I did. I wasn't interested in winning the conversation, and nor was he. I was curious, and I wanted to understand, so I was willing to ignore a few false starts to get the understanding that I really needed and that he needed me to have. And that's what makes a conversation more collaborative and feel safer. Now, having said that, don't let your curiosity push against his boundaries. Now, in the example I just talked about, I also tried really hard to keep checking in and asking him whether he was still okay to keep talking. And if he asked to drop the conversation for a little bit, absolutely. You absolutely have to respect that request and honor it, even if it's a little bit difficult. You do need to come back to it, but dropping it in the moment is another essential part of building trust with your partner and demonstrating your deep respect for him and your respect for his personal autonomy. Now, try thinking about the times that someone has tried to pressure you into changing, especially if you didn't entirely agree with what they wanted you to change into. Maybe when you were a kid and your parents wanted you to be tidier and they nagged you about trying to clean your room more. Did that actually make you want to be a tidier person? Or did you just want the nagging to go away? If you want him to feel more able to share his emotions with you, you need to back off before you hit his boundaries. Otherwise, he's going to want to push back against you in the same way that kids push back against their parents about cleaning their room and doing chores. It's just more serious because it's about his emotions. So just because you want to understand what's going on for him doesn't actually give you the right to know. Try to keep reminding yourself, and I know it's hard, but that everything he tells you about what he's thinking or feeling is a gift he's giving you. It's not your right. And that will often make it easier to show him and prove to him that you have a deep, sincere respect for his boundaries. Next thing you can do is to learn better communication skills. Now, I know that this is a video about how to help him open up about his feelings, and he's probably the one with worse communication skills. But the thing is, you can't actually change his communication skills for him. The only thing you can ever change is yourself and how you behave. Sometimes it's pretty sad that that's true, and I know that there are people that I really wish I could just reach in and fix something for them. But given that it is true, how can we change our communication to make it easier for them to open up to us? Now, the first step is to use your I statements. This is where you tell them how you're feeling by saying the words, I feel, or when this happens, I start thinking this. Now, this is a lot more cooperative and much less of an accusation than the alternative, which is you statements. A you statement version of the two things I just said would be, you made me feel, or when you do this, it makes me think. Those are really quite aggressive and focus on the other person's behavior. Using I statements shows your partner that you're taking responsibility for your own feelings. You're not holding him responsible for what you feel, only for his actions. If you're emotionally available, you might not always realize just how much of a relief it can be for someone who isn't emotionally available when someone just deals with themselves and takes responsibility for their own stuff. Now, make sure that you also seek support, and you can even have couples counseling. Now, the chances are he's going to hate that idea. Emotionally unavailable guys don't want to open up to their nearest and dearest, let alone doing so to a stranger. They are also so used to being pushed to open up more that they assume that a therapist or counselor is going to do exactly the same thing to them. They think that they're going to be paying money to spend an hour being told that all the problems in your relationship are their fault, and because they can't open up, and it's because they're wrong or they're faulty or they're broken. To be honest, I wouldn't want to go to therapy or to couples counseling if I thought that that was what was going to happen to me. I doubt you'd want to either. Now, luckily, that's nothing like what they'll actually experience if you can get them to go. If you guys can find a great counselor, he will hopefully start to experience some really impressive levels of empathy, which can be hugely helpful. If he's willing to try couples counseling, that is an incredible sign. It's a great sign that he's ready to change. If not, that's okay too. Remember, this is about helping him, not forcing him. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't get the support you need. Make sure that you have someone to talk to, whether it's a therapist or a counselor or just a close friend. Anyone at all. Final thing is to be patient. Honestly, this is not going to be a quick process. Guys who are emotionally unavailable have often spent many years putting up these boundaries and these barriers and these things to keep us out. They're not going to let them down quickly or easily. Be ready for this to take a long time, and decide whether you're willing to put in effort over several months or even years. Unfortunately, any sign that you're pushing him to make progress faster, especially in the early stages, can be annoyingly counterproductive. If you're not willing to wait for him to sort himself out, that's okay too. You're not his parent, you're not his guardian. You are his partner, and your needs matter too. If you need someone who's emotionally there for you right now, rather than waiting, there is nothing wrong with deciding that this relationship isn't actually right for you. It's sad, but it might be best. So that's it for our video on how to help an emotionally unavailable man to open up and share his feelings. What do you think? Does this fit with your experience? Have you ever managed to get an emotionally unavailable man to open up? And if so, how? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you soon.